Hey y'all. Okay, so I'm back with Captain Underpants and the Perilous Plot of Professor Poopypants. Okay, so we read chapters 1 and 2 last night, and I hope you went home and retold with your parents. So now we're going to start chapter 3, and chapter 3 is called The Field Trip. Oops, I wonder what's going to happen. Jerome Horwitz Elementary School was having its big annual field trip to Pequa Pizza Palace. All of the kids had brought their permission slips and were lined up to get on the bus. George and Harold could hardly wait to eat pizza and play video games all afternoon. "This is gonna rule," said George. "Yeah, if we ever get there," said Harold. "Hey," said George, "let's change the letters around on the school sign while we're waiting." "Good idea," said Harold. "Probably not a good idea." So George and Harold ran over to the sign and began their, thoughtfulness. Unfortunately, the boys didn't notice a dark, foreboding presence lurking nearby in the bushes. Ooh, what do you think is lurking nearby? Oh, I keep reading to find out. "Aha!" cried Mr. Crump. "I caught you boys red-handed." "Uh-oh," said George. "Ha, ha," laughed Harold. "This is just a little joke." "A joke?" yelled Mr. Crump. "Do you boys think this is funny?" George and Harold thought for a moment. "Well, yeah," said George. "Don't you?" asked Harold. "No, I don't think it's funny," yelled Mr. Crump. "I think it's rude and offensive, and that's why it's funny," said George. "Oh," said Mr. Crump. "You boys like to laugh, huh? Well, here's a good one. You two are officially banned from the school field trip. Instead of eating pizza, you'll spend the afternoon cleaning up the teacher's lounge. Isn't that funny?" "No way," said Harold. "That's not funny at all," said George. "That's cruel and unusual punishment. That's why it's funny," Mr. Crump snarled. All right, we're about to start chapter 4. Left behind. Mr. Crump marched George and Harold over to the janitor's closet. "You can use these supplies to clean the teacher's lounge," said Mr. Crump. "I want it spotless by the time we get." Mr. Crump went back outside, climbed onto the school bus, and laughed loudly as the buses pulled away. The teachers all pointed at George and Harold and laughed too. "Rats," said Harold. "I thought we were going to have a fun day." "We can still have fun," said George. "All we need is this ladder, that bag of powdered paste, and those big boxes of styrofoam wormy thingies." So George and Harold carried their supplies to the teacher's lounge and got down to business. Ooh, do you think they're up to doing anything good? Probably going to do something to get them in trouble again. At the sink, George pulled the sprayer nozzle while Harold carefully taped the sprayer handle in its on position. When the two boys put the nozzle back, making sure the sprayer head was pointed in the right direction. Next, George held the ladder steady while Harold climbed up to the ceiling fan. There, he began scooping generous amounts of powdered paste onto the tops of the fan blades. "Is this right?" asked Harold. "Yeah," said George. "Try to get most of it on the ends of the blades." "Got it," said Harold. Uh-oh, they look like they're up to no good. George closed all the blinds, while Harold adjusted the ceiling fan so it would turn on when the lights came on. Finally, the boys filled the refrigerator up with the worm-shaped styrofoam packaging pellets. "This is going to be fun," said Harold. "Not for the teachers," laughed George. Chapter 5. The fun begins. An hour or so later, the buses returned to the school. All of the children got off, packed up their stuff, and got ready to go home. Mr. Fide, the science teacher, was on school bus duty. The rest of the teachers gathered around George and Harold and began teasing them. "You kids sure did miss a fun field trip," said Miss Ribble. The pizza was so delicious. Too bad you didn't get any. I wanted to bring you back a pizza, said Mr. Meaner, but I ate it on the bus. He threw an empty pizza box at George and Harold's feet, and the teachers howled with laughter. Maybe you can lick the cheese off the box, Mr. Krupp roared. The teachers eventually got tired of taunting George and Harold, so they retreated to the teachers' lounge to relax. Hey, how come it's so dark in here? Asked Mr. Meaner as he flicked on the lights. The ceiling fan began to rotate very slowly. Uh-oh. What do we think is going to happen? Miss Ribble went to the sink and turned on the faucet, and suddenly the spray nozzle sprayed cold water all over her. Ugh, she screamed. Somebody turn the water off. The teacher sprang up and tried to help, and they all got sprayed too. The ceiling fan was rotating faster now, and some of the powdered paste began flying off the fan blades. The teachers struggled with the faucet, pushing and shoving each other. Finally, somebody turned the water off, but not before everyone was thoroughly soaked. The ceiling fan was now spinning at full speed. All of the powder on the fan blades had been flung off, and it was now floating down onto the wet teachers. Hey, what the? Cried Mr. Meaner. What's all this sicky stuff? Yelled Miss Anthrope. By now, all of the teachers were covered in gooey, sticky paste. It didn't take a genius to know that George and Harold were behind all of this. Those brats better not have touched my diet soda, Miss Ribble shouted. She dashed to the refrigerator and swung the door open. Suddenly, thousands of tiny styrofoam pellets flew out into the room. The wind from the ceiling fan blew the pellets around and around. Naturally, they landed on the stickiest thing in the room, the teachers. Ooh, they're in trouble. Ah! Screamed the teachers. They ran out of the teachers' lounge, screaming and yelling. George and Harold saw what looked like a group of giant evil snowmen heading straight toward them. I've got a good idea, said George. What? Asked Harold. Run, said George. Hey, so we read chapters 3, 4, and 5 today. I want you to tell your parents everything you remember from 3, 4, and 5, and we'll be back tomorrow to do 6, 7, and 8. All right, guys, have a